The woman who had built a billion-dollar empire without shedding a single tear stood frozen on a bright Saturday morning, staring through her living room window as the little girl next door wrapped her tiny arms around her exhausted father. The man smiled even though his eyes carried the weight of years of heartbreak, and in that single moment, something inside the city's coldest CEO cracked in a way she never thought possible. She had spent years believing love was the greatest weakness a person could ever allow into their life, but fate had quietly moved a single father and his daughter into the house next door, and neither of them knew they were about to change everything she thought she understood about strength, family, and the courage to love again. Before we begin this unforgettable journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to the channel Heartwarming Tales for more emotional stories that remind us love can appear when we least expect it. Celeste Monroe was known across the business world as the Ice Queen of Crestline Industries. Newspapers praised her fearless decisions while competitors feared the calm expression she wore during every negotiation. She had earned every dollar through relentless work, sleepless nights, and sacrifices few people could imagine. Years earlier, the person she trusted most had betrayed her, leaving her convinced that emotions only distracted people from success. Since then, she had replaced birthdays with board meetings, vacations with investor conferences, and friendships with contracts. Her elegant home overlooked a peaceful suburban street, yet despite its beauty, every room echoed with silence. Wealth had surrounded her with luxury, but it had never filled the emptiness that waited for her every evening. Everything began changing on a warm spring morning when moving trucks arrived next door. The new neighbor was a tall black single father named Omari Brooks, whose smile somehow remained gentle despite the obvious exhaustion on his face. Beside him skipped his 7-year-old daughter, Zuri, whose endless excitement turned ordinary cardboard boxes into castles and every flower into a treasure. Omari worked as a public school music teacher while balancing every responsibility alone after losing his wife to a sudden illness 3 years earlier. Life had never been easy, yet he carried himself with quiet dignity, teaching his daughter that kindness was something no hardship could ever steal. At first, Celeste barely acknowledged them. She nodded politely when they crossed paths but quickly returned to emails and conference calls. She believed neighbors only complicated life, and she certainly had no intention of becoming emotionally involved with anyone. Yet every morning she found herself noticing little moments through her window. She watched Omari braid Zuri's hair before school with surprising patience. She watched him water flowers after long workdays while laughing at stories his daughter told. She watched them eat simple breakfasts together on their porch, smiling as if they possessed everything they needed despite living far more modestly than she ever had. One bright afternoon, an unexpected storm swept across the neighborhood just as Zuri's colorful drawings were displayed outside for a school art project. Without hesitation, Celeste rushed across the lawn and helped gather every picture before the rain destroyed them. When Zuri hugged the rescued artwork against her chest with grateful tears shining in her eyes, Celeste experienced a feeling no business award had ever given her. It was small, quiet, and strangely comforting. From that day forward, tiny acts of kindness slowly replaced awkward distance. Celeste found herself leaving fresh flowers on Omari's porch after learning they reminded him of his late wife. Omari quietly repaired the fence separating their properties without accepting payment. Zuri proudly brought Celeste homemade cookies that looked far from perfect but tasted better than any dessert prepared by expensive chefs. The once silent mansion next door slowly filled with laughter drifting across the fence every afternoon. Still, Celeste refused to acknowledge what was happening inside her heart. She convinced herself she simply appreciated having considerate neighbors. Yet every business achievement suddenly felt strangely incomplete. During meetings, she caught herself wondering whether Zuri had done well on her spelling test or whether Omari remembered to take a break after working so hard. Feelings she had buried for years began rising to the surface, frightening her more than any corporate battle ever had. Then came the day everything changed. Crestline Industries faced a massive financial crisis after a trusted executive secretly manipulated company accounts. News reporters surrounded Celeste's office while investors demanded answers. For the first time in years, she felt completely alone. Late that afternoon, she returned home emotionally exhausted, expecting another lonely evening. Instead, she discovered a small basket waiting on her porch. Inside were homemade sandwiches, fresh lemonade, and a handwritten note decorated with colorful stars made by Zuri. The message simply reminded her that even superheroes needed dinner after difficult days. Celeste sat on her porch steps holding that simple note as tears quietly rolled down her face. Billion-dollar contracts had never made her feel as valued as a little girl's thoughtful gesture. A few moments later, she looked toward the neighboring yard where Omari was helping Zuri plant sunflowers. Neither of them realized they had already planted hope inside someone else's broken heart. Over the following weeks, Celeste began making changes no one inside her company could believe. She introduced family-friendly work policies, created scholarships for children who had lost parents, and encouraged employees to prioritize life beyond the office. People whispered that the once untouchable CEO had become warmer, but only Celeste knew the truth. Compassion had slowly melted the walls she had spent years building. One sunny Saturday, the neighborhood gathered for a community picnic in the local park. Children laughed beneath blue skies while families shared homemade meals across long wooden tables. Watching Omari chase Zuri across the grass filled Celeste with an unfamiliar peace. She realized love did not always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it appeared through ordinary mornings, shared kindness, and people who quietly reminded one another that no one was meant to carry life's burdens alone. As the golden afternoon sunlight stretched across the park, Celeste understood that success had never truly been measured by the size of her company but by the size of the heart she had almost forgotten she possessed. Omari never tried to rescue her from loneliness. He simply lived with grace, generosity, and unwavering devotion to his daughter, allowing those qualities to inspire change naturally. His greatest achievement was not winning someone's affection but proving that strength and tenderness could exist together. If this story has touched your heart, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with friends and family, and subscribe to Heartwarming Tales so more people can discover stories that remind us kindness still changes lives. Special request: comment below with the words, "Love can heal any heart," if you believe one act of genuine kindness can change someone's entire future. Months later, the once silent mansion no longer felt empty. Laughter drifted between neighboring gardens, weekend breakfasts became cherished traditions, and sunflowers bloomed along the fence that had once separated two lonely lives. Celeste finally understood that the strongest hearts were never the ones protected by walls. They were the ones brave enough to open again after being broken. And as she watched Omari and Zuri smiling beneath the warm daytime sun, she realized love had never interrupted her success. It had completed the life she had spent years trying to build. Sometimes destiny doesn't arrive with grand speeches or impossible miracles. Sometimes it simply moves into the house next door, carrying a little girl with a bright smile, a father with an unbreakable spirit, and the quiet promise that even the coldest heart can bloom again when touched by genuine love.